I was a cop. When my wife was raped, I got the guy who did it, and I killed him. 2 months later, I died. I went to hell. 113 of the most vile creatures escaped.
They think they'll beat the devil. Nobody beats me.
So how am I supposed to send them back?
The eyes, windows to the soul. Destroy the eyes and the damned get a one-way ticket back home to hell. But it's not hell you should be scared of. It's losing your second chance at life on Earth.
Time to give the devil his due.
Welcome back, everybody, once again to the Sons and Shadows cast. We're back for another round of the lost, forgotten, and canceled television shows. Hey, we should not forget these incredible shows, and we're celebrating. It's our 1st anniversary with this episode. I'm your host, as always, Detective Jeff Johnson.
And I'm the better devil you know, Kevin Smith.
And I'm the 113th damn soul, Will.
Thank you, Will. And now we're going to go ahead and pick right back up where we left off from our previous episode with our interview with Ethan Reiff and Cyrus Voris discussing BrimStone. So what did you maybe have in mind with the ending?
Okay, I'm going to confess something. I don't remember, but Ethan seems to remember what the actual ending of the show was. So Ethan, now you're on the spot because I don't remember what we were going to do.
Really?
I don't. I honestly don't.
Yeah. He was gonna send back soul number 113, and then we were gonna flash cut, and he was gonna be poised over Gilbert Jacks at the moment before he murdered him.
Back in like
15 years,
15 years
before
earlier.
the show started, and he was gonna make a different decision and walk away, and no one would ever know. Was the entire series the blink of an eye in his crazy imagination, or did he really get sent back to that point by the power of the devil and the universe, and this time he made the difference?
Because the devil said he would get a second chance of life on Earth, but he never specified what that was going to be. And so I think he's right that he was going to go back to that moment, and hope the idea was has he learned, because he's gone through all this, that he can't really kill somebody in cold blood, and that he shouldn't make this decision, and is he gonna change his life? That's right, Ethan. I didn't remember that until you just said that's right.
I remember for years everybody kept discussion points for wherever it was, when it got to Sci-Fi Channel, the Sci-Fi boards there, or the boards for WB, but everybody was always speculating, wait, they've never really said how a second chance, so it'd always be one of the main topics. And then the other topic was always, what were they going to do next for the next 9 episodes? And you just went over a little bit of that.
Yeah, I'm trying to think if there was. I think we were going to go back, and again, now I'm sort of philosophically saying I'm glad we didn't do this, but we were going to go back to the wife plot, where, because there's that sort of hint at the end when she gets the snow globe that she sort of somehow knows that he's back, or that he was somehow back in her life. And we were going to do, I think the episode was going to be Zeke Stone's birthday. So it was going to be his birthday, and he's got to hunt down some damn soul while he's having his birthday. And I think Max throws him, Lori Petty throws him a surprise birthday party. And she actually tracks down his wife, not knowing that the wife thinks he's dead from 15 years ago. And I think the very end of the episode was like, and honestly, I don't think we figured out what the next one was. This was supposed to be, I think, the season finale.
Yeah.
He comes back to the hotel, and there's a surprise birthday party, and his wife's there. And it's like, oh, shit. And that was, I think, the final. Yeah. But now, saying it out loud, it sounds fun, but it's probably not as good as the way the series actually ended with the episode.
Different sort of cliffhanger.
It depends. If it had gone on for another 2 or 3 seasons, that would be a different kettle of fish. But
so, real quickly, in It's a Hell of a Life, it seemed to me that the angel was saying that he was also serving God's will when he murdered Jax.
Well, I think he was serving God's will by hunting down these damn souls. I don't think it was by murdering Jax. I think it was just that he was a good, the debate was he a good person or was he a scumbag who was going to go to hell anyway? And the devil's attitude was, no, you were a scumbag. You were destined to go to hell. And the angel's attitude was like, no, you actually did good things and you've been doing good things. And then, as Jeff points out, in the original ending of the show, the joke was that the devil had scammed him the whole time, as a way to almost remotivate him to hunt down these damn souls.
Exactly. Yeah.
Because Ethan and I, our ad point is like, our attitude was always, well, nobody's smarter than the devil. The devil's going to constantly one up you regardless.
Game playing.
So, yeah, but again, I think this is a creative. I don't even remember who made the final call. There was a big foot. I mean, I think
it was us versus Horton, and then in the end, I think he got the network probably to weigh in on. I mean, and in the end, it was really the network, and I think the network.
Yeah, they wanted Stone to sort of win at the end. You know, that was the thing, and it's a totally legitimate. It works.
And of course, anytime the star of a TV show wants his or her character to win, it's not because of self-serving narcissistic reasons. It's only because they can see that their victory, that character's victory, will serve the greater good of the story and the show's universe in a better way.
I see what you're saying. Do we notice the sarcasm there? But look,
I don't know. Do we?
Look, to your point, Jeff, if you didn't know that alternate ending existed, it's still a good ending for the show. It's a satisfying ending. I think for us, again, it's like splitting hairs at a certain point. We just wanted that little extra thing, like, no, the devil, you can never really beat the devil.
It's interesting. Those little details, they don't seem little at the time. Cy and I are both big soundtrack guys, and we're really into film music and now, TV/streaming music.
I love the sound on the show.
That's great. There's an episode where the original composer, who Cy and I had hired, now obviously we had to jump through a lot of hoops, and that composer had to rise to a lot of challenges in order to get that gig, but he was an unknown with almost no serious credits before the show. And we just found him and thought, man, his music is great and it's the perfect fit for this show. At a certain point,
that was Chris Leonard, who went on to be a hugely successful composer.
Yeah,
he does The Boys now for Amazon. He's done huge movies. But yeah, BrimStone was his first gig, his first.
And at a certain point, the network decided his music was like too dark or too moody or whatever. And maybe they just felt the whole show was like that, but they couldn't fire us because they didn't think somebody else could run the show. So they fired the composer and replaced him without really any input or consultation with us with somebody else. And the new composer, who was a talented composer and a fine musician, did his first episodic soundtrack.
And his mandate was, the show's too dark. You got to lighten up. You got to make the music brighter, and the music's too dark and too scary. You got to lighten up the music.
And this happened right up against the deadline to deliver the final sound mix and the final visuals for the broadcast of the show. We had already mixed the show with the old soundtrack, and stuff happened. And I think maybe we got word, or maybe we didn't even get word. And we went to our respective homes from the office, and Cy got home on like a Friday night just in time to turn on the TV and watch Fox and see the opening scene with the new soundtrack, which we had never even heard. And it blew his mind and pissed him off. And I'm like the more naturally confrontational son of a bitch guy from Brooklyn, New York, and Cy is the more good-natured, amiable, friendly, go along to get along guy from Ohio. And Monday morning, he marched in to the office of the person above us who was responsible and basically spat on that guy and said like,
oh, you ruined the episode.
Sold out the show. You fucking sold out the show.
Disaster. What have you done? You ruined the whole episode. And it was this whole horrible thing. And then the punchline to what Ethan's saying is, a few years later, I'm watching the Sci-Fi Channel and they rerun the episode, and I'm watching like, the music's fine.
Yeah.
You know? This is the thing. You get in such a creative tunnel when you're working on something like this, and it's so intense, and especially, and maybe it's still the same with streaming shows, though I don't think there's a certain intensity back in the day when you're working on a network show and you've got to deliver those episodes every week, and you're just in this absolute non-ending just marathon of creative chaos and insanity, that you do get into this tunnel and you focus on these things. And I remember thinking like, oh my God, they brought in a new composer and he's ruined the series. And then years later, I was like, I was crazy. The music's perfectly great. This guy did a good job. What was I thinking? It's just I was in such a crazy tunnel at the time.
There was a lot of electric guitars. Like, kind of almost like, yeah.
But it works. It works fine. Nobody, again, we were in a particular tunnel. It's true. You watch it, it's like all the episodes have good scores. I think the music all works really well.
Yeah, I like the parts where it was really subtle and more like of an aesthetic, ephemeral kind of background kind of thing.
Yeah.
I mean, the biggest irony is that the network and studio fired Chris Leonard, and he went on to basically have a huge career as a TV and movie composer. So, Ethan and I weren't crazy when we hired him.
Looking back on it, I do feel like Chris Leonard's was probably the low-hanging fruit where there was a certain faction of sentiment at the network that the show was just so dark and who's going to watch this, even though people were watching, not a record-setting audience, but people were watching. So enough people were watching, they couldn't convince the boss to like replace the people who created and are running the show. But if they wanted to have some legit noticeable impact on the bottom line of the show every time you tune in, if you can't change the showrunners or the head writers, what do you change? Change the guy who's doing the music and hire somebody who you're directly in charge of and tell them, you got to make it fun. You got to lighten it up. You got to give the audience something to enjoy while these crazy guys are taking them through hell or whatever.
More quirky.
Yeah, more quirky.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah, I didn't like the actual music parts where it was like actual music. I thought it could have been it probably would have been a lot darker.
Huh.
Yeah, it's all, like I said, it's I don't think, it's interesting. That BrimStone is mostly score. We've done shows where we've done more song scores. We've done both versions.
And
but
there's some like needle drop, use of pop music or art, the music producers cheap repro of pop music. Like there's one thing that jumps out at me is in Poem, where the damn soul from ancient China is trying to get away from Stone, and he ends up at like a rave, and basically we have like a knockoff of Smack My Bitch Up, is playing, and we had like tempted with the Prodigy song, and then we couldn't get that, but basically that's how it goes. The in-house music infrastructure creates a sort of like a similar but different, version.
There's a lot of fake stuff because they wouldn't give us money at that. Actually, we got the Annie Lennox song for the end of...
for A Morning After, right?
Yeah, no, for Hell of a Life.
Oh, it's a Hell of a Life, yeah.
Is it? It's a Hell of a Life?
No, yeah. And that was a really expensive song to get. And I think Peter called up her agency or representation. That was a big deal that we could get that song, because I think they gave us a deal on that, because that was or he called up Warner Brothers and said, well, we really desperately need the money to license this song.
Yeah.
We had at that point, because the show was always sort of struggling with the ratings, they didn't want to spend money on anything like that.
On the bubble. The show was on the bubble.
It's funny, Ethan, you said there's a fake version of that Prodigy song. There's also in the either the opening, no, towards the end of Hell of a Life, there's a fake version of Rob Zombie's More Human Than Human, which is when the bank robber is like the big action climax that episode. And it's just like, well, we obviously tempted with that. It's like, we can't afford that.
Well,
so we're going to do a fake version.
Okay.
Wait, it even gets more crazy.
No, but hang on. Before you say the more crazy thing, I have to say, I can't help but interject. This is when I knew, like when I pitched the show to that 10-year-old kid on the streets in Toronto, and he was like, that's awesome. I knew we had a decent chance to actually get on TV and be a success. The moment during the pilot production when I knew we had a decent chance to end up at creative loggerheads to some degree or another with Peter Horton was when, because I'm like more of like, between me and Cy, I'm like the metalhead, hardcore punk rock music guy, right, from New York. And we had gotten the dailies back of Stone coming back to Earth in the opening of the pilot on the subway. And I'd watched the dailies and I was like, on cloud nine, this looks fucking amazing. This is exactly what we needed. And I called Horton to my hotel room because we're all staying in the same hotel in Toronto. And because I had this great idea. And I played it for him while I played my CD of More Human Than Human by White Zombie. And I said, look, this is amazing. It's going to be so fucking awesome. It's going to blow your mind, man. And he watched and listened. And then he looked at me and said, like, I don't know, man. I don't know about you. And that's when I was like, uh-oh. we'll make the pilot and maybe we'll get to make the show, but we'll never be on exactly the same creative wavelength, you know.
It's funny. I was going to say in the episode Ashes, there's literally a fake Peter Gabriel song. There's a song where Stone and Ash are dancing in the bar, and there's a song that starts playing. I think it's a fake. She puts the song on the jukebox, and it is a fake. It's a guy singing. A guy who sounds just like Peter Gabriel, and everybody thinks, "What Peter Gabriel song is that?" Peter Gabriel had something to do with the show. It's a total fake Peter Gabriel song. It was just like, I still feel self-conscious, and we weren't really responsible. The composer was like, but it's like, oh,
maybe he figured we wouldn't get sued by Peter Gabriel since he was making money off the show.
Yeah, that's
for
right.
The theme song.
Right. So like, we'll just
That's
do a fake
hilarious.
Peter Gabriel song, but
Yeah.
it's like an original song that was done for the show, but it sounds like some like, some obscure Peter Gabriel B-side from some like old single or something.
I don't want to cut us off. We could talk about this for hours as far as I'm concerned, but now as far as you're, to the best of your knowledge, does Warner Brothers still own the rights to this show? Because I know Shout Factory talked for years about trying to get this on DVD and it just never came to fruition. I'm kind of curious if they're the ones who still own the rights and they'd ever let somebody handle that.
Yes, they do own the rights. It's a Warner Brothers show. I don't know what I think, we sort of missed the initial window of when DVDs were selling, 150, 200,000 copies of anything. We sort of missed that window. At that point would have been a good time for the show to come out on DVD. And
because we died before that window opened.
Right.
But we were too early for the bespoke DVD, in-house Warner Brothers production, unfortunately.
And then I think, I never say never, because I do think the fact that there's a genre show out there that is not available on any other platform or DVD seems like an obvious choice for Shout Factory or Vinegar Syndrome or some boutique label to go after it and make a deal with Warner Brothers. I just don't know. The thing that we've learned in our careers is a lot of this stuff happens if it's easy to happen. If it's hard, because there's no real money in it. Okay. So in 2023, Warner Brothers isn't going to make a lot of money licensing or putting out a BrimStone DVD. Okay. So I believe the corporate attitude with a lot of this stuff, it's similar with soundtracks, merchandise, is unless it's something that is easy to do, that's already in place, if they have an in-house distribution deal or something, the idea of having to bill lawyers and legal departments to do contracts, to put this stuff out, to clear the music rights.
And also on top of that, to use the technical infrastructure to actually, just jump through the hoops that they have to jump through.
Right. Okay. We got to make HD masters of the stuff.
It's just a question of, it's just not worth the time and effort.
Right. A lot of these big corporations now feel like, well, we're not going to really make any money. We'll make, $20 and we do this and it's a pain in the ass. And why should we even do it? And I think that's unfortunately a lot of the reasons certain things don't come out, is because it's just really a lot of, I think when all these MGM channel and Sony HD, a lot of FX movies, when all these cable channels were exploding and some of these streaming channels, and they wanted everything in HD, that's when these studios suddenly started, oh, I guess we got to do a new HD master of, an obscure movie from the 70s or 80s. And that's when all this stuff started becoming available. I think the industry, things are changing again as they're sort of going over to streaming. It has to be driven by something in the marketplace. Otherwise, there has to be somebody at the studio who's interested in doing it.
Or who's a fan.
Right. Warner Brothers had
really the way for it to come back to life now, or to live on, not back to life like new episodes, would be, I mean, it's crazy. I never thought of it before. It would be on HBO Max, right? They should just be on HBO Max.
If somebody, and Warner's has Warner Archives, which is a division that does remaster of old movies and old TV shows, and sort of do the print to own disc, and they do stuff for, as Ethan says, for the catalog for HBO Max. I think if somebody there was a fan of the show, I think it would happen. But other than that, again, there's just no money in it. There's no way for them to monetize it. So from a corporate standpoint, why would we do it? What are we gonna, so we'll sell 1,000 copies of the DVD. It's like, it's so hard now with that stuff. And again, there is a cult audience and a niche audience that I think, you could sell, maybe you could sell 5,000 copies of a BrimStone DVD set, but ultimately it's not enough money for a big corporation like Warner's, and now Warner's Discovery. Yeah. It's like, they're trying to find ways not to spend money now.
Yeah, they're cutting stuff left and right. The X of Zaslav.
They're just committing insurance fraud is what they're doing.
Exactly.
Those fucking guys.
But because of that, I think unfortunately,
it was just timing. If BrimStone had premiered and had its 13-episode run 5 years later, I think the minute it went off the air, Warner Brothers would have, would have put up a page on their site saying, order, if you want the show, let us pay for it, and we'll burn the DVDs and send them to you.
Or just put up so many weird shows. I mean, there was a show that Stephen Bochco did, Brooklyn South. It was like one season and out. Nobody even remembers it. I saw DVDs of that. Like, again, as Ethan said, 5 years later, everything came out.
I guess the thing is, 5 years later, it would have been like Cy just described, a box set of this for one season of the show that would have been at the big bookstore or the big box store. 10 years later, it would have been what I described, where you go on the Warner Brothers site and you order the specially bespoke made, made to order DVD, and they send it to your place. But now, or when it happened, there was no aftermarket. There was, and Jeff, you were probably part of this, when the show went down and almost instantly got picked up by who was it first?
Sci-Fi
Channel in December, and you guys lost. Right,
there was a big campaign to get Sci-Fi Channel to talk to Warner Brothers and bring the show back for new episodes, but it never happened.
Well, speaking of the legacy, where do you think it fits today, and as far as your filmographies?
Oh gosh, I don't know. I mean,
I mean,
you know,
for
here's an
us,
interesting-
well, the first thing I'll say is for us, it'll always be profoundly important because it's the first thing we ever did in television. And the truth is now, looking back, television has become the majority of our careers. You know, I mean, we wrote a lot of movies and some of them were really good and, you know, some of them got made, whatever. But most of our time in the trenches working as writers has been in the world of television. And if it wasn't for BrimStone, that would never have ever have happened.
Yeah, it's funny. I was at which unfortunately Ethan wasn't able to attend. I was at a premiere party right before the pandemic, and some Hollywood party. And at the party were two actors who had guest starred in the BrimStone pilot. And I was, oh my God, what are the odds in any universe that these two guys would be together at this party? And I literally went over, I said, I don't know if you were even going to remember me, but my partner Ethan, I wrote and produced BrimStone, the pilot 20 years ago. Oh my God. And there was this crazy thing. And I took a picture. I said, Ethan, it was like so crazy. And I said, look, to you guys, that was probably just another gig. But for Ethan and I, that was like a profound moment in our lives, that this was like our first TV show, our first pilot, as we said earlier, the first thing that we actually got to produce, not only just write, but actually sort of produce and have some creative control over. So it was a fun moment, you know, a fun, crazy moment 20 years later. So,
I mean, the other thing is, as evidenced by us being here with you and your co-hosts who are currently replaced by their still photos.
I'm coughing. I can't help it.
No, it's cool. Hey, dude, is that your son?
Yeah.
Yeah, he's a very handsome young man.
Thank you.
You're very welcome. The thing is, it lived on, right? Like, and I mean, part of that is that it was a horror show. Of all the movies that we've worked on and written, the one movie that really lives on and people are always trying to get in touch with us and talk to us about it and have a podcast discussing it or ask, you know, getting us to write more information about the experience or whatever, is a horror movie called Tales from the Crypt Presents Demon Knight. And there's just something about the genre where if you do something that's good and also delivers on the genre, the fans will always remember it. And for us, that's been awesome. You know, I mean, because we've done other stuff that's good, but nobody cares once it's off the air, you know?
right. But some of the horror stuff, I will say there is a direct connection. We did rip off, we wrote Demon Knight a few years before BrimStone. And if you watch Tales from the Crypt Presents Demon Knight with Billy Zane and Jada Pinkett, and if you watch BrimStone, there's a real obvious connection, which is that the way that the demons are dispatched in Demon Knight is they shoot out the eyes, the windows to the soul.
Yeah.
So we thought that was such a great idea. It's like, let's just rip it off and do it again. You can't rip off yourself, technically. It's not a rip off.
Well, at least you can't be sued.
Yeah, exactly.
Right.
So we ported that over to BrimStone.
Speaking of which, here's a good thing, and I didn't tell Cy about this, but this is a surprise to all of you guys, including my partner, and not a bad way perhaps to go out on, but maybe you'll recognize it. Speaking of the eyes are the windows to the soul, and the way to send the damn souls back to hell was to destroy their eyes. Do you know what this is?
Oh, yeah.
Cool.
Oh,
The special weapon
That's
for
awesome.
Hasdrubal Scaris, the
Yeah.
Slayer.
Ethan has the
Yeah.
prop, has the crazy
Wow.
weapon.
That's
That's
awesome.
cool.
I took it down off the shelf just for you guys.
Oh, thank you.
Awesome.
Yeah. And as you can see, it does
Perfectly
line up.
spaced.
Yeah, it
Oh,
does.
Just line up. Don't take out your eyes. That's
Yeah.
right.
No.
Be nice to Ethan.
That's true. That was made by the prop. I remember the prop guys were really into the fact, like,
Yeah.
yeah, we're gonna make this cool, badass, weird looking weapon. This is gonna be awesome.
You have one also. You have the dagger.
I have it someplace. I don't know.
Yeah.
I have a picture.
I'm not saying you have to present it right now.
No, I have the the ceremonial daggers.
Yeah, Asher
Oh,
Badaki.
yeah.
Yeah.
Neat.
All a couple props.
Is that a real, like, actual style of weapon that Hasdrubal had?
The real answer is yes and no. I'm like the military history guy, and I did give a couple of real reference images to the prop department. If we hadn't been talking for so long, I would go to my shelf where there's like 1,000 military history books and pull out the book that I had back then that I still have, that has the image, whatever,
Wow.
which I think was from, it wasn't actually a Carthaginian weapon, but it was a real weapon, maybe from like the Pacific Islands, I think, which basically was, lined up kind of with the eyes and had the half moon blade.
That's awesome.
The only other thing we do on our show is a little social media blast where we get a little bit of comments from our fans. Would you like to hear some of those before we let you go?
Sure, of course.
If they're positive.
Oh yeah.
No, that's okay. Good, bad, or indifferent. Lay it on us.
No, it's fine.
Oh, see if I can make it without coughing. Let's see.
Up to
here.
you.
Why don't you go ahead and do it, since I feel another one coming on already?
No problem. I got this.
Man, he's in the episode Carrier.
Oh, I feel like it. I've had a horrible cold
Right.
this week.
Yeah.
Sorry to hear that.
All right, we're going to start with Brian Stannis from Facebook, where he wrote, "Love the show. The Ash reveal was excellent." Yes, it was.
Thank you.
Great. Yeah, we talked about that. That's right.
Yeah. And then we had Jeremy Cathy. "I love the premise. Originally found out about it reading Wizard. Tried to keep up, but the time slot was wrong." I think we all agree with you on that one, Jeremy.
And for those of you kids that don't realize at home, Wizard was the name of a magazine, which was almost like a book, except for it didn't have hard covers and it was really big.
Yes.
Yeah, there you go.
Very well explained.
And it had some really awesome price guides in the back where they made up their own prices for comic books.
Oh, that's horrible.
They did.
And then we had Brian Higgins. He wrote, "Loved it. Another similar show I remember at the time was American Gothic on CBS."
Oh yeah, with
Yeah.
that was a show.
I think that was the exact same season.
Yes.
No, I think that was
Oh.
earlier. I think that was before Brimstone. But it had what's his name in it? That great
Lucas Black? Or
no.
Lucas Black? Oh, Gary Cole.
Gary Cole.
Oh, Gary
I'm thinking of the
Cole,
character name.
Gary
Actually,
Cole.
we didn't talk about this. We talked about Peter Horton was not the first. He was not he was a really out of the blue choice to play Ezekiel Stone, because he was like the pretty boy from 30 something, right? How could he play a tough, grizzled New York cop? Ethan and I were originally talking about our ideal Zeke Stone was an actor named Clancy Brown.
Oh,
Genre fans know from, playing the bad guy.
The Kurgan from the first Highlander movie.
Highlander, yeah, exactly. But he had played a good guy in Blue Steel, which was a Jamie Lee Curtis cop movie.
yes.
He was her cop partner that oh my God, I'm blanking her name. That she won an Oscar for Hurt Locker, the director.
Catherine Bigelow.
Catherine Bigelow
Oh,
directed. So he played a good guy in that, and he was on ER playing a good guy doctor or a good guy. And so we were like,
Hospital
wow, Clancy Brown
administrator.
can be a good guy. He would be great in Brimstone. And then as soon as Peter came on the scene, because Peter was still a bit of a TV star, and the fact that he was interested in the show, I think that changed everybody's idea. But he was really not. We're like, wow, Peter Horton wants to do this? That's crazy. He obviously turned out to be great, but at the time we were like, what? That's nuts,
I would have gone gaga over Clancy Brown, just like, oh, that's Lex Luthor.
Too true. And then we got one from Greg Milage. "Am I a fan of the best personification of the devil on TV ever?" Yes.
Oh,
And that was his line.
And very, very well said. That's
Yeah,
awesome to hear.
Glover was amazing, and the thing that you find out sometimes when you especially in television. The problem is that with movies, you have one shot to get it right. With television, you have a couple of tries. And so what was great is, as Ethan said earlier, Glover was really good in the pilot. And then when we brought him back, it was like, oh, this is great. We can just bring this guy back every episode and he kills. He's amazing. And so then
whatever we wrote for him, he knocked it out of the park.
It became a joy to write those scenes and have him have fun with stuff. And one of my favorite bits, he's in the elevator with Stone, and he says, man, before they invented the elevator, I had to walk all the way from now. I mean, it's like that are so funny, and John just killed it. He was great. So it became a joy to sort of write that devil character, and then the way he would like constantly break Stone's balls and give him a hard time and mess with him, And then when he got to play the angel character in the Hell of a Life episode, again, John was he just was great. He was phenomenal. So yeah.
One thing I'll add, not to go back to what we were talking about before in the trenches, but Glover was on our side with the ending of that episode. Glover was like, no,
right.
It hurt him as much as it hurt us.
The thing I'll say about John Glover is that I still to this day don't know how old John actually was when he was doing BrimStone, but my God, was this guy ripped. We never got a chance to show. He was probably, if we'd gotten a back order, we would be able to show the devil without his shirt on, because Glover was in the best shape I'd ever seen a human being at that point in my life. Like, holy moly.
Or at least a tank top for the ladies.
Yeah, at least. Right. Exactly.
Oh, he conveyed emotion in this as Lucifer too, where you're just kind of like, I didn't see that coming.
He has that great bit at the end of Ash.
Yes.
When Stone sort of gets him, he says, like, you were in love with her. That's how she fucking got away from you, man.
Oh, the look on his face.
Yeah, you realize, and then he blows. He says, don't be ridiculous. The only thing I ever loved was God, and look how that worked out, or whatever. So he's great. But John plays it like, ooh, Stone got him. Like, oh yeah, you can hot.
John Glover. It's like, this is a cliche term that I used to hear a lot. I guess I haven't heard it a lot recently, whatever. But John Glover literally like elevated the material. Like, however good what was written by us or the writing staff, or the sets that were great, or locations, or the photography, or the cinematography, Glover just, every scene he was in, he just took it to like another level, which was really awesome.
He had such good facial expressions, and you could read his eyes as he's like, every way he emoted just worked for me, and I absolutely loved it. And even when he was doing that line from Ash, like you were just saying, you could see like something underneath the eyes going, I might still love God, but I'm still pissed at him.
Yeah.
Like, there's that exclamation point, is how he just, every time he mentioned anything about love or even God, there was a little bit of, I haven't forgotten about that.
Yeah, he still had a grudge. I know, it's true. It's true.
Yeah, you could tell there was really great chemistry with the writing and the way he was, and just great dynamic.
Again, he had great chemistry with Peter Horton. With Peter, they were great together. That's the whole irony about the journey of that, the devil becoming a series regular, is that they were, you sit there now, it seems obvious, but at the time it was like, we always should have made sure to have him in every episode. They were great together.
We wrote the devil to be scary but fun, and he delivered it like so well that we had to bring him back for the fun. I mean, we had other ways to deliver scares, but especially with what happened with Peter and his take on the character, we just didn't have another way to deliver that much fun.
Well, and you found the balance in it, and he brought it. So
yeah, he was great. He was great, and they were great together. Yeah,
he was a lot of fun.
Yeah.
We got a comment from John Templon. This should have garnered more attention back then. I enjoyed the premise and the show itself. There should have been more seasons.
Yeah, I wish.
We
all
agree.
wish, yeah.
Thank you for that.
So, I always have that thing where I feel like I have this crazy television theory, because if you think of so many, I mean, I'll mention an obvious one is Game of Thrones. You think of so many shows that shit the bed when they end because they just can't figure out how to end the show, and they're trying to serve so many masters. It's almost like I think of BrimStone, like, yeah, that 13th episode, we didn't know it was the last episode, but it was like, it was the perfect ending episode. And I just, yeah, you know, it's weird. I always think of like, if BrimStone had more seasons, I don't know. I wonder, would it have been as good? You know, when you always wonder, would you be able to keep up the quality? Would other crazy things happen? So the fact that it sort of is this sort of perfect little 13 episode thing is sort of, you know, maybe that's the way it was meant to be, you know?
Yeah.
Because otherwise,
That's the definition of crap rationalization.
yes.
I'm not saying he's wrong. I am not
I
saying he's
sincerely
wrong.
believe it. I sincerely believe it. Ethan and I have had a couple shows like that where, you know, we've done a couple seasons and the show ended where we didn't know it was going to be the ending. And I always look back and say, well, that's the perfect ending for the show. You know, I think there's always, I admire series that go on for season after season after season after season and are still able to remain fresh, because I just feel like it's a real challenge to keep the quality level up, you know? So I think the fact that we did 13 mostly really good shows with a couple.
Yeah, you guys didn't ask us a lot about Lovers.
Oh, that's a funny. People love that. The funny episode.
Which is a good episode, but it's certainly the most humorous episode, and that was it did not start out on the boards in the writer's room to necessarily be as humorous as it ended up, but we were able, by pushing the humor, I think, to sort of, you know, maintain it at the same general level of quality as the rest of
Oh, the car from hell was priceless.
Yeah,
the car from hell. Shoot out the eye.
Yeah, that was a great.
Yeah.
That was great.
I think we suggested that as a joke, and then I don't know, Ethan, if it was Kim and Ian or somebody was like, "Yeah, let's just do it. That's a great idea." We're like, "Really? You really want? Okay, let's do it."
I think it was I think that was you and me. I think like I suggested it because partially inspired by the Bill Maudlin World War II cartoon of an old sergeant shooting his Jeep that broke down with flat tires in the headlights. And I was like, well, why don't we just have him shoot the damn car in the headlights, and the car's soul gets sucked back to hell. And you're like, that's genius.
No,
yeah,
I know,
we'll
but
that. I was like,
point,
are you crazy?
The point is that I don't think we thought that anybody would let us do it, but it turned out to be a great fit.
Oh, well, that's a different,
You know?
yeah, you mean that calmer heads at the studio or
Whatever, it's
network
like,
would
"Oh,
say, what are
that's
you,
too
fucking
crazy,
nuts?
you
You
can't do
can't
that,"
do
but
that.
anyhow.
But thank God they didn't.
Yeah. And then we got a comment from Stormu Jones. I love this show. Lori Petty was really good in it. This and Strange Luck were great.
Oh, that's funny. Yeah. Lori Petty was great. I mean, again, sometimes you find an actor comes in for a character and you're just like, she just kills it. Again, she had a great chemistry with Peter. She was great. And again, we loved writing for her. It was like, okay, this is great. We brought in another character that can put some humor in the show. And we just had it's sometimes you get an actor that comes in and you feel like, I know exactly how to write for that actor. I know exactly how to deliver material that they will be able to knock out of the park and be great every time. And I think we felt that with Lori Petty, with the character of Max. You know,
Yeah.
she was just, ironically, Lori Petty first came in to read for Ash, believe it or not.
Oh
Man, I forgot about
she came in
that.
to read
That's
for
true,
Ash,
yeah.
and we're like, she was,
Yeah.
she had been in Point Break. I think she was just at a point in her career where she wasn't as big a movie star as she once was. And we were like, shit, you mean we can actually get Lori Petty on this dumb TV show on Fox? This is great.
I think wasn't she in Tank
Yep,
Girl?
she was the lead in
Which also
Tank Girl.
before?
Yeah.
Yeah, and that, was really interesting, but it wasn't like a
No, so I
smash
think we
box
were
office
shocked that we
hit.
could get her at that point in her career. And so then we were
Yeah.
like jumped on. The fact that she came in for Ash meant that she was willing to do a series. And we were like, let's get her in the show. We'll come up with a character. And that was sort of designed for her.
Yeah, I think we knew we were in this situation where we had to find some way to add some more humor. And then she came in and read for that big recurring female role. And Cy and I were like, wait, maybe she can work at the hotel.
I think we did create the character for her, and then she actually agreed to do it. It was great. That was cool. Yeah, no, she was great. That we loved, and she gets to tell the God Squad story.
Well, she was also the introduction for a lot of the tech that Zeke used too. So that was a nice approach to not having just a straight up like geeky person like most shows have.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, that's true. Because that was the whole thing, is that he didn't know anything about computers or modern technology or anything.
He was the translator for the modern
modern world.
Interleague play. What is that?
Interleague play.
Yes, interleague play.
That was something my fiance and I noticed, is that there was no typical stock recurring characters like a wisecracking hotel clerk, like out of like a a rundown hotel, like the typical kind of person, or like the cop buddy who's always there, and like the ones that are there are really different and unique.
That's awesome. That just means we were able to avoid cliches.
Well, I think again, a lot of this is organic. Honestly, I think the in the pilot, there's the younger cop. Kane. I think there was a period where we were thinking like Kane was going to be a reoccurring character and be sort of like Stone's cop buddy, and then it just didn't evolve. It just seemed like, you know what? Let's bring the devil in. It for whatever reason, that idea.
Well, it was also the location, because we shot we wrote the pilot in New York, set in New York, and we assumed that the show would take place in New York. We shot the pilot in Toronto, faking Toronto for New York, right? Faking New York in Toronto. And then the show got on the air, and we were going to shoot in LA, not in Toronto. And there was a creative discussion about, are we going to fake New York in LA? And Cy and I didn't really want to have to fake New York in LA episode after episode. We thought better, if we're going to have to shoot in LA, better to set the show in LA, And then the idea of finding a way to bring Kane from the NYPD to LA on the heels of Zeke Stone was like a bridge too far in pretzel twists.
Too many New York cops running around LA.
Right. And then ultimately, I think creatively, it was a better decision, because it allowed us, like you said, create more interesting supporting characters, not have the cop sidekick, which.
Yeah, and also it was, like it or not, it is more of a single lead show. And we got a great supporting cast, and certainly the show wouldn't be what it became without John Glover as the devil in particular. But like it or not, it's really Zeke Stone's show. It's really Peter Horton's, the star. And it's probably better for him not to have the cop sidekick from top to bottom. Yeah, looking back at it now.
Ethan, Cyrus, thank you for both joining us. Are you working on any current projects you can talk about, or in the future that you can share?
Well, Ethan always
does. We have one project that is sort of in the hopper, so to speak, like just about to maybe get out in front of an audience, maybe, that we love. We've been working on for a long time. It's called The Astronaut Instruction Manual, and it's actually inspired by a nonfiction book about space exploration and space travel, kind of written for young adults. There's no story or characters in the book. It's more like just a great enthusiastic vibe for the future in space, and a lot of amazing details. And if you have kids, there's a lot of cool stuff for them to do to sort of like interest them in potentially the future in space. So we had to kind of come up with all the characters and the whole story for the project, but it's pretty cool. We think it's pretty cool.
See.
Right,
We'll see. It's Alcon is the studio. They're behind the recent Blade Runner sequel, and I think they just announced they do the Expanse. for
Wow.
Amazon, and I think they're doing a Blade Runner TV show that Ridley Scott is directing several episodes of for Amazon also. So we'll see if that moves forward. That's what we're sort of working on right now. So we'll see if that comes to fruition. It's always a question in this business. Like, you work on all these projects and you never know what's actually gonna move forward. As I say, go back to the beginning. I used to think TV was so easy. You just write something good and they put your show on the air, you know. But we'll see what happens. But that's sort of what we're working on now.
Yeah.
Good job finding us. No, listen, it was a blast. You know, we loved, like I said, I think I told Jeff before you guys that we always do this type of thing about Tales from the Crypt Demon Knight. That's sort of like the thing that we always talk about. So it was like, wait, he wants to talk to us about BrimStone? That's awesome. All right, cool, you know.
Basically my
And I'm
favorite
glad-
show.
Well, that's great.
Yeah, that's awesome.
And I'm
That's
glad
awesome.
you newcomers dug the show also, you know.
Oh,
My fiance
absolutely.
as well.
Yeah, that's congratulations, and that's awesome.
Thanks.
Someone named Jeff didn't tell me that you guys had written Demon Knight.
No.
Someone named Jeff knows it's one of my favorite goddamn movies.
Oh, that's awesome.
Me
It's one of
too,
the
I
only
didn't know
two horror
until-
films from the 90s that I actually liked and found scary.
Oh, that's cool. That's great.
That's fantastic.
But it's funny.
I must say, you have excellent taste.
One of my
Yeah.
favorites too.
No, it's funny. It was a little story. We were working on a show. Oh my God, it's probably like 5 years ago.
That was like 2014.
2014,
so
2015. Yeah, we were working on this show a few years ago, and we had this younger female writer who was a playwright who we hired on the show and we're going to show with. And one day at lunch, just for some reason, we started talking about everybody's favorite horror movies. And she suddenly said, "Oh, you know what horror movie I love? Have you guys ever seen this Tales from Crypt movie, Demon Knight?" Oh, it's my favorite horror movie. We're like, we wrote them. She's like, "What? I didn't know you guys wrote them." Because nobody pays attention to who writes movies. And she was just like, "Oh my God, that was amazing." And so, you know.
yeah, that was crazy.
That was our
The
first
craziest thing-
inkling, honestly, that it was sort of that people really love this movie. Because the movie, when it came out, it was I would say a modest success. It wasn't a huge hit. It was somewhat successful, but it wasn't a big, you know, it wasn't Die Hard or anything, right? It was this movie. It was fun. People liked it, whatever. And then we just sort of went on with our careers and whatever. It was just not anything anybody talked about. I mean, people talked more about Kung Fu Panda because that was a big, massive hit movie, whatever. And so suddenly, yeah, we started to discover like people love Demon Knight. This is crazy. And now it's like all we talk about is Demon Knight.
Well, not us. All
No,
people,
but when
other
people
people
interview us or they want to
talk
ask us about
Yeah.
stuff, it's like, I saw you
Yeah.
guys wrote Demon Knight or whatever. So anyhow, it's sort of funny.
Yeah, I saw that in the theaters.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Oh,
Me
that's
too.
good. That's great.
That's great.
That was the way to see it. I mean,
Oh
that was,
yeah,
you
it
know,
was epic.
that was the way.
Well,
to
I
see
even
it.
shared
Yeah.
your script for Freddy versus Jason with these two as well.
Oh, that's
Ooh.
funny. Oh my God.
That's the one thing I almost broke in to mention it, but I didn't because I break in too much as it is. But when Cy was talking about us going around, making the rounds, pitching that action show, and all the TV buyers saying, "We don't want this show, but if you guys came back and pitched us a horror show, we'd buy it like that." And like I said, I think I interjected to say they all had like copies of our resumes. So on that resume was Demon Knight, and also the fact that we had written a draft of the as yet to be produced Freddy versus Jason. That was one of the things that leapt out at them. Oh, these guys are horror
we were
guys.
one
and
of 1,500 writers on Freddy versus.
Yeah, there's like a dozen
Everybody in
scripts.
Hollywood.
Yeah, I mean, I always
Yeah.
said that was for years. That was like there's an old phrase about like, you know, always keep $1 in your pocket so that no matter how bad things are, you still have that $1 in your pocket. That was the $1 in New Line's pocket for like 15 years. Like they were developing that movie forever. And they never made it because it was just like, well, we'll just wait. And at some point, they must have been desperate enough to finally like, okay, we're finally gonna make Freddy vs. because literally there were new writers every year, there were new producers. It was just constantly being redeveloped and redone and this, that, and it was in perpetual development. It's like they weren't not gonna make it, but they weren't gonna make it either. It was just sort of like I do believe. I don't think they honestly, and it's not because I don't think our version was any better or worse, but I don't think they finally made Freddy versus Jason because they had the best version. I think they just finally decided they were going to make the movie.
No, that's what it felt like too.
Yeah, it's just like, oh, you know
Yeah.
what? We've been developing
Also,
this for 15
they didn't
years.
exist as an independent studio anymore when they did that anyway.
No, it's just like, let's just make this now. Finally, we'll make the movie. It wasn't because they had finally gotten a visionary filmmaker or they had finally, this is the best
cracked
version.
the code.
No,
They cracked
they just
the code.
they were like, you know what? We got nothing going on this year. Let's finally make Freddy versus Jason.
Close enough. We just did Jason in space, so maybe we should give people what they really want.
There you go. Exactly. Jackson, in fact, it's funny because we actually, when our version was developed with Sean S. Cunningham, who, when they didn't make the version we wrote with Sean, that's when he went ahead and made Jason in Space.
Okay.
Because he had gotten them to agree to it was sort of like a payoff for like, well, if you're not going to make my damn Freddy versus Jason movie, you still have to make another Jason movie with it. But that was, I think, the origin of Jason.
The consolation.
That was
prize,
his consolation prize. Like, okay, we're not making this yet, but here, you can make this one, so.
Oh, that was funny.
I think I was the only person that watched Jason X and went, you know what? That was fun.
I liked it.
That was all right.
No, I liked it too, Kevin.
Like, he broke somebody's frozen head. That was fun.
There you go.
That was cool.
And the sleeping bag gag. That was fantastic as well.
The only thing I always say I remember, the one great thing about working on that movie was that Sean S. Cunningham actually had he had a table read of Freddy versus Jason. And I always thought, well, this is funny because this is something you do with like a Robert De Niro movie or an Al Pacino drama or some Sidney Lumet. We do the table read with the actors to see how the drama sounds. Not with a horror movie. Like half the table read was like, scream. Now, to that point, it still was great and fun and helpful. And even at the time, I remember thinking, Ethan, this is absolutely crazy, but it's great. This is the funnest thing ever. We're literally doing a table read of a crazy gore-filled horror movie that we wrote with actors very,
It was a good script, and we got some good feedback and notes.
It was still insane, but it was great.
Yeah, well,
so,
that's true.
All right, you guys.
But Sean S. Cunningham was a really good guy. That's one thing we should say before we say goodbye. From our experience on Freddy vs. Jason,
the originator of the Friday the 13th
really decent guy.
Series is actually a really good guy. So there you go. There's a lot of assholes in this business, and Sean is not one of them. So
I've never
Very
gotten that
cool.
impression of him myself. So,
yeah,
and that's just as a fan, not actually knowing him.
Yeah.
No, he's a great guy. So
Thank you guys very much.
Yes, thank you so much.
This has been.
This was a
blast.
highlight for me. So.
Yeah.
well, it was
that's
super
awesome.
fun, Jeff. Thank you guys. Thanks for finding us and doing this. Like I said, we never get to talk about BrimStone, so it was a pleasure for us also.
Now, don't stop the episode just yet. We had a little conversation going before the episode began. We're including that here. And also, we want to make sure you stay tuned for the messages thereafter. We have some good news for you.
The DATs were like super high quality. They were like, like cassette tapes, but like this was like the state of the art in the late 90s.
Oh, wow.
And I still have to this day this DAT of Peter Gabriel with the music samples with the different versions of the theme and him like commenting at the end in the beginning, like, I hope you like this. And it was crazy. And then Fox made us put this whole thing over the music. I'm like, why did you blow all this money to hire like this huge mega rock star to do this like music? And he was doing soundtracks at that point. It's so ludicrous. But anyhow, we should save all this stuff for the actual podcast.
So Damn Soul number 113 and Diablo Especial, are you guys legitimately BrimStone fans to the level of
I think Jeff has read them in on the program.
a host?
No, this was new to me. There was a point in my life, actually in 1998, where I wound up being homeless for a little while. And then didn't have TV for about 6 years.
That's a great excuse. The best excuse I've ever heard for not watching something. That can't be topped. That's the best excuse.
Also,
I
I'm
didn't
sorry
see
to say,
your
not
movie because I was homeless.
Not to steal the thunder of that incredibly dramatic and profound revelation, but you didn't have to be homeless to miss BrimStone on TV in 1998. Unfortunately for us, but go ahead.
My problem is I was always a Fox fan, so finding out that I missed something on Fox at the time, I was like, God damn it! So,
that's funny.
Yeah, so this was my first time around. I really enjoyed it.
Did you watch you watched all 13 episodes?
Yep.
Oh wow, that's amazing. That's awesome.
Yeah.
What about you, Damn Soul 113?
So like you said, I saw a couple episodes when it aired. I distinctly remember the premise and the very distinct coloring to the show and the tattoos burning off and the devil. I didn't remember it was John Glover, but I remember the devil was a really interesting character.
Yeah, it's funny. It's cool. It's funny. I remember I knew the show was doomed when I got the TV guide back when they had, the TV guide used to be the big thing, like preview issue, right? And they had all the new shows profiled in the TV Guide magazine. And they had a profile of BrimStone. And they said, and in the profile, they had a cool picture of Peter Horton. They talked about the premise. But then the sort of, the profiles were sort of also sort of reviews, like preview reviews. And it literally said, for this show to be any darker, you'd have to turn off your TV set. Which, come to think of it, might not be a bad idea.
Oh.
Man, I thought you were going to tell a completely different anecdote, because that's a pretty 5 negative-star review. I agree. But the reason I thought you were going to say that you knew the show was doomed was because they printed TV Guide for the premiere episode, and it came out and hit the newsstands. And between when they printed it and when it hit, between when Fox sent the info to the printers and when they published it and it came out on the newsstands, they changed the schedule. So it had the wrong night for BrimStone.
Yeah,
it was originally
from maybe from Thursday night or Saturday night.
No, it's supposed to air on Tuesdays.
Or Tuesday night to Friday
night. And then at the last minute, they changed it to make it lead
Friday
into
night.
Millennium on Fridays at 8. But the first episode, I don't know how anybody saw it because the TV Guide, which was like the big, how you figured out what was on TV then, had the wrong date and date on it. So that's why it's right. That's really why we would do.
Even though the show was down with the devil, it was born over a bad star somehow. I don't know.
Yeah, I did watch the whole show just in the past few days and loved it. I'm happy I got to see the whole thing finally.
Oh, that's awesome. Thanks.
Yeah.
Great.
And
before we start officially recording, can you guys share, you two gentlemen, share with us how you got access to the entire season to watch?
Jeff.
From this guy.
Jeff.
I have it on a Google Drive, so I shared it with him.
That's awesome.
Very recently, Cy was somewhat desperately struggling because his son, who's an adult, had said to him, hey, I'd like to watch BrimStone. And Cy didn't had lent his copy of all of it on DVD to somebody and not gotten it back. And he asked me for my copy, and the only thing I had was the pilot. So I lent Cy my DVD of the pilot so he could watch it with his son, which I think they watched it, but that was it. So I don't know. Cy might have to we might have to bug you for access to
No, that's cool. I was setting one up just under a BrimStone Gmail account, and so I can offer it to anybody who listens to the podcast.
Oh wow.
Some access, and I can give that to you guys too, although they're in the wrong order.
Really?
It's how they aired, and I warned these guys, I'm like, these episodes are out of order. It's how I watched it when I first started, and the first few episodes don't make sense.
Well, we tried to cover it. There was some ADR at the end about this guy from New York came to LA.
No, it's the devil. It's Peter Horton. He goes, welcome to the City of Angels. I remember that. Oh God, what a nightmare, but also
in a good way.
Dream come true in one hand and a nightmare in the other hand.
And last, but certainly not least, if you're looking for a lot more Brimstone content, there's a few places you can go. Go to facebook.com/Brimstone TV. There is a YouTube channel. The link will be in the description below. And lastly, just want to let you know, if you're looking to view Brimstone, please send an email to brimstonetv1998@gmail.com. If you send us that email, we will make sure that you get access to those episodes through the Google Drive. We're also proud to announce an affiliation with filmlore.no. If you love reviews, interviews, and so much more, please head over to filmlore.no and discover a whole new world. Make sure you check us out on all of our social media platforms. We got Facebook, Twitter. We are at Suns and Shadows. We're also on Instagram at Suns and Shadows Cast. We are at sunsandshadows.com. Thank you again, everybody, and we'll see you down the road.
I didn't send you back here to while away the hours in front of the tubus boobus anyway, but being an enormous fan of the mind-draining little box myself, I'll allow some idle viewing, as long as it's rated TV D. D for diabolical.